We are now recording.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to another episode of the Bet the Process podcast. This is a very special one because this is the most dramatic Bet the Process ever, because Rufus is going to unveil who is the most likable person in sports betting Twitter. Is it the Jets, Rob, Rufus, or me? It's definitely not me.
Well, this is between the people on Bet the Process podcast tonight. I just was making the assumption.
But the Jets are not on Bet the Process. I guess they are, because you're probably going to say you want to bet on them this week.
They are. They're always a topic of discussion. Wow, this is a close vote.
Is it really?
Yeah, this is pretty. We have 805 votes.
I got 805 votes on that poll.
Yeah, it's not a great poll, but
I take it back, by the way. When I said it was a waste of time originally, now I take it all back.
We know that the New York Jets have a plurality of the votes, and the Jets are more likable than any of us.
The Jets won?
The Jets win with 31.8%. I have 29.8%. Rob has 21.2%, and Jeff has 17.1%.
So I won because I'm the least likable. Because that really was what this poll was about.
I guess it's like golf. You want the lowest score.
I wonder, though, how different it'll be depending on, like, if Jeff posts his own poll with the exact same question and I post my poll with the same question, we should take an average of the results.
Funny you should say that, Rob, because that's exactly what I proposed to Jeff, and I held up my end of the bargain. I said he could phrase it however he wanted.
By bargain, what do you mean exactly?
Well,
because I never agreed to doing this. I said it seemed like a waste of time.
Well, okay.
So what's interesting about this is, at the end of the day, which would you guys rather be in this case? Would you rather be, according to Gambling Twitter, would you rather be the Jets or me?
Oh, I mean, I'd rather be liked than not liked. I'd rather be the Jets.
I don't know. I kind of feel like if you're not liked among Gambling Twitter, it's probably an okay thing.
I guess it depends on the level. It depends on the level. We can't really gauge whether you're hated, Jeff, or whether you're just not liked. And those are two very different things.
Okay, let's say the answer was hated.
I don't want to be hated.
But by Gambling Twitter, why do you care? It's not like you're hated by people that know you. Were you out hunting today, by the way? You look like you're in a hunting attire.
I was out for a walk at night, and I'm in like a not very lit neighborhood. So you got to be like, I don't want to wear reflective clothing or anything. I could wear reflective clothing, but this is bright enough that if someone, were to see me, come to a stop sign, they'd see me. So,
does the reflective clothing not go well with your skin tone?
I don't want to be that guy. Like, I've been that guy that's driving the car and sees the people in reflective clothing and probably made a comment under my breath before because I'm an ass. But yeah, I don't want to be the person wearing the reflective clothing. So I'd rather just wear this bright orangey red shirt.
So you're saying that somebody in bright reflective clothing is not well liked?
I don't know. I think it's more likely than not they're not well liked.
Or how about this? They're not well respected.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. They're not well respected.
How about someone that wears like a flower Hawaiian baseball hat and a tank top, and says it's okay, I'm at the beach, even though I look like Billy Hoyle.
Who's Billy? Oh yeah, we already went over this. That's
glad you listened to our own podcast.
If the poll had been which person is most respected, would the Jets have still won?
I mean,
would the order have been completely reversed? I don't know.
How about which one is most feared?
Ooh,
because you're feared by sportsbook operators. You two are probably feared by sportsbook operators.
Yeah, Rufus bets more than me, so he would probably command some more fear in that regards. I'm not saying he's returning less than I am, and I don't want to get into that discussion.
I think you just said you had a better ROI than he did.
I think Rob does have a better ROI on football than I do. This for sure right now, given that
I would make myself a minus 10,000 favorite on that this season at least.
Are you crushing it this season?
Are you crushing it, or do you just think I'm doing really bad?
No, I'm having a really good year.
Damn.
Really good.
Okay. So we need.
Nice.
Why aren't you telling?
Let's jump into the plays
Let's
then.
go.
Just kidding. No, I wanted to about one thing that was at least top of mind for me. When you guys talk about, we kind of had this conversation about sports betting, and then someone slid into my DMs on Twitter and sent me a screen. Do you guys go into the Slack, the Right Angle Sports Slack?
Yeah, I mean, I check it a couple times a day. I pretty much have it open on my screen though all the time.
Oh, I signed up like a month ago and checked for the last time like 3 weeks ago. But
so someone sent me a DM that said that they were big fans of our show and wanted me to know that people were talking shit about me in the Right Angle Sports Slack. And it said, "What do you non-pros, according to Jeff Ma, someone who doesn't bet and whenever he talks clearly shows he doesn't know anything about betting, think about these." And then it was, "But Jeff Ma out there trashing props. Jeff Ma has that covered. Did I hear it wrong? Or did Jeff Ma say on the Bet the Process that real bettors don't bet props? LOL." Now, what I would say is, just to defend myself, is that I would say that the actual money that you can get down on props is generally so small that a lot of people are not willing to like grind out props that are real big bettors. Would you guys agree or disagree with that statement?
well, first I want to say when you are a multimillionaire many times over from not only blackjack but a successful entrepreneur, you know, I mean, props just don't do it for you. They don't give you you don't get enough of a.
Well, you can't get it down enough on them. I think I would love to bet more props. Like when you do Super Bowl props, I like eat that shit up. But like the problem is, by the time I get to them, you're already picked them all over, and there's no value there anyways. But it's just funny because I would think that of all people, I like make a big point to say like I like to talk to people that I know actually bet. This is like a whole conversation that we had the last time that we were on.
I think it's a bit of a fallacy that like you can't get down large on props. I think it's very difficult to do so.
But you got to have like a network, right, to get down in a bunch of places.
And you're constantly
like a
grinding accounts. Yeah, you're constantly grinding account. Like it's tough. I mean, it's not that you can't do it at scale. It's just extremely difficult. But I know me and Rufus. I mean, we know some. I know of at least someone in Chicago that gets down pretty large on props to the point where it's as if he's betting, into major markets, full limits on games. It's.
Wait,
so what kind of numbers? You're not mentioning any names, so you can say what kind of numbers.
I want a dollar amount here. Like what's he getting on let's say a player prop for an NFL Sunday, non-prime time?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I'm guessing based off the volume of accounts, probably between 30 and 50K.
Holy, okay. Damn,
that's real money.
That is definitely real money.
But that's that's like a that's more than a 1 in a million, I would say. I mean, that's somebody who's done that for a long time, and that's their bread and butter. It's difficult. It's challenging. I don't have the grind to do I don't have the motivation to do props personally. There's just so much that goes into it. You need to just constantly be recycling accounts as much as possible. It's a softer market for sure, but I wouldn't say pros stay clear of it. It's just
well, I mean, our bearded friend is a pro, and our bearded friend bets props. So I would not say that they don't bet props. I just always feel like if he texts me a prop, I'm not going to take the time to go into Chris, see that the value's already gone, and if I want to get $500 down, I could, I guess, at a worse price than what he sent it to me at. So it just never seems like the best.
Jeff, you also only have one out, literally.
No, I have more than one out.
Okay, because literally,
I
literally thought you only had one out.
No, I've had historically I've had a lot of outs, but over time you lose those, as we all know. And I haven't over the last few years taking a big effort to get more outs because honestly, like I don't bet enough now that like it really matters. Like if there's, like Chris is a place that I know that I'll always be welcome. It's like Cheers. So.
Yeah, I'm always interested in the props stuff. I just, it's funny because, and I'll throw his name out there. I don't care. He'll probably laugh if you listened after the fact. But Joey Knish is a big props guy, right? And he kind of went on a rant today about how it's getting harder and harder to beat props because now all these skins are moving to these prop builder tools, which have become pretty common in the industry. I mean, that's just another problem, I guess, when you're getting into props is the offerings are not always going to be there and they won't be consistent over time. So now, you get a bunch of books who are just offering pretty shitty offering with pretty insane margins on them as well. And I mean, it is what it is. There's just not the demand for that type of market. There isn't the same kind of uproar as there would be for full game lines and totals and things of that nature. So, he made a comment today about, I guess I'm going to be eating Arby's or something for the next couple of weeks. Nothing against Arby's if anyone's a big fan of that, but it's, it's a grind and it's a challenge and it's, I don't know. I've just never really gravitated towards it. The only experience I had in props or like really betting at a high level was this year's NFL draft where I did fairly well, but
because there was nothing else to do at that point.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You were just betting on that.
That's it. Like if there was other sports going on at that time, I could not envision.
I mean, everyone the first time they're like, "Oh, the NFL draft. Let's bet pro." I mean,
yeah.
When's the last time either of you guys have eaten at Arby's?
I thought that whole thing was sort of a reference to nihilist Arby's.
What's that?
Like nihilist Arby's, which was like the greatest Twitter account of all time.
Maybe.
When's the last time you ate at Arby's, and can you actually name something on? I mean, roast beef sandwich is all I can name.
Both my parents are Italian immigrants. So like I don't think I've eaten Arby's maybe in my life. If I have, I don't remember. Like it would be
I don't understand what that has to do with eating at Arby's.
It's like it would be like I'm trying to term this a bit. It's like a disgrace to a sandwich, and is what I'm trying to get at. So like I've never even thought about.
Are Italian immigrants the authority on sandwiches?
They're not, but for me, it's there's probably something in your culture, Jeff, where like it's a type of food that is very dear to you, or that type of cuisine rings true, and then you see something that is similar, and you're like, this is an abomination of food, and I think that's what Arby's would be to like a person who grew up on veal sandwiches and meatball sandwiches and chicken cutlet and things of that nature.
I mean, I'm on the Arby's website right now, and this shit looks delicious.
Just remember,
waffle
guys,
fries. They have a signature They have a signature sandwich, which is a corned beef Reuben. This is not your dad's Arby's. This Arby's looks insane. What we need to do is get Arby's to sponsor this podcast.
I think we could do that.
Then shit would be very different.
I want nihilist Arby's to sponsor it. Who reminds you, whether you die at the hands of violent paramilitary cops in the wildfires of COVID or just from a little good old-fashioned night of too much gin and speed, remember, nobody cares, and very soon no one will remember you were even ever alive.
So question for you guys, per the point that Rob made about like me being offended by some sort of food, do you think I'm more offended by P.F. Chang's or Panda Express?
I don't know why I found that so funny. I'd say P.F. Chang's. I don't know why.
Fundamentally interesting question.
I'm going with P.F. Chang's.
I think I'm more offended by P.F. Chang's. Because Panda Express is just like, it's made to be in a mall. It's like, it's just, and for what it is, it's fine. It's American Chinese food, made in bulk, made in a mall, no pretense.
Like, was the founder of P.F. Chang, was his name even Chang? Was his name like Mike Williams?
No, it's the same guy that owns Fleming's, right? Isn't it the same chain that owns Fleming's?
What's that?
Fleming's, the steakhouses. You guys don't know Fleming's?
Nope.
I feel like I'm talking to a Canadian and an alien.
Well, definitely a Canadian. I don't know. Rufus kind of looks like an alien, but.
Okay, back to sports for a second.
Yeah.
So the other thing that happened this week on Twitter, Rufus, you tweeted out this whole thing about the media coverage of big bets or big parlays. Do you want to say your piece and then we can have a little discussion on it, which I think it was one of your better tweets
Whoa.
in my mind.
Well, I was
And I
expecting
wanted to try to interrupt the
vitriol.
tweet by like at least somehow deleting it or like typing on your computer while you were trying to type, but it didn't work.
Well, first off, I mean, the big bets have just, I mean, I don't know, it's become a controversial topic on Twitter. So, but second of all, I mean, maybe there is something to like literally spending some time composing this, like proofreading it and then pressing send the next day. That's what I did. Like this
You know what that's
might
called,
be turning over a
Chris?
new leaf. That's called being an adult.
That's
It's
called a
called what?
blog. That's called a blog.
Well, this was, I guess, a blog. But, I mean, my post, it wasn't really about the big bets as much as it was about the fact that the operators are essentially controlling what is covered by the sports betting media. And I think that's the problematic thing. And it's largely due to the affiliate model. I mean, people are, these media entities are paid to refer users, to refer people to these online, to these sports books. And so, and they're provided content. They have relationships, writers have relationships with people that work at these sports books who feed them information. They say, hey, this guy bet this amount, here's this big parlay that won. And so if you want any actual, if there's any sort of news story that, doesn't portray an operator in a favorable light, they're not really, the operator's going to clam up and we won't really get any actual news out of it. And so, to me, it's sort of a systemic problem. I'm not indicting everybody in sports betting media. And as people pointed out, we are sports betting media. That's
like the nicest thing that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about us. Who said that?
I don't know, somebody on Twitter, but I don't know the answer, but I do think it is something worth talking about. I mean, you don't see the example I loved was that you don't see newspapers covering people that won $20,000 from $5 scratch offs at 7-Eleven. I mean, it's because they don't get any referral fee for paying, they don't get a referral fee when someone goes to 7-Eleven and plays a scratch off. So I think I don't think it's necessarily I don't think covering big bets is problematic in and of itself. I do take issue more with the glorification of these like 12-team parlays that are essentially lottery tickets, and they basically prey on these sort of biases, like the availability heuristic. I mean, people emotionally see this and think, hey, I could do this, and are more likely to sort of emotionally make these bets, which are huge house edges. I mean, they're an 18 parlay is what, like 40% plus house edge. And so that's, I think the problem gambling angle is real there. I know you have something to add there, Rob.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with you, Rufus. So I think it's just easy content. And I think you look at guys like Ravel and Purdom and, other big guys who are quoting.
By the way, Purdom just turned a knot in his stomach by being compared to Ravel. So we'll move that up.
I feel bad for that. I shouldn't really use them in the same sentence because I hold one in a much higher standard than the other. But the reality is I think these guys are measuring the engagement of their tweets and their content. I don't think I'm not in the room with Chad Millman and his directive to Darren Ravel, but I highly doubt Chad is telling Darren, you need to cover these big bets and things of that nature. I think this is just something that Darren started at one point, and he realized, well, you know what? I'm getting a lot of engagement on this tweet. I'm going to keep going down this path. And I think, this is just a personal opinion. We won't know, but I think we give these guys way more credit. And I honestly think a guy like Darren Ravel is looking for as much engagement as possible. Plain and simple, no matter how he's going to get it. Is not really following a strict he to me, and I don't care to speak badly about him because I think very lowly of him in general. I'm not even sure if he understands what the business model for the Action Network is. I think he's so completely spaced out and in his own world and in a sense incompetent when it comes to the gambling space that I think he's just looking for eyes on whatever he can get. So That's my opinion. I remember a couple years ago, I tweeted something about I wish these bets would stop being covered, and Dave Purdom responded to me with something along the lines of like, "Why don't you tag me next time?" or something like that. And like, people eat up this content, or people enjoy this content. It's the reason that I put it out there, which is a fair response. But the content
so Purdom was in favor of this kind of content.
Well, it is right. It obviously gets views, but here's my question to you. I mean, will it continue to get views, or will it sort of become, will we become overly saturated with this kind of content? Because when you have like 30 big bets per day on NFL Sunday, like suddenly the novelty's gone.
I think it will get overly saturated at one point, and you'll just see a pivot to some other type of content that people are starting to consume. That's just how these content cycles tend to work in general. But like, there's a lot of new people to this space now that really haven't consumed any sports betting content before, and this piques their interest. Like, a guy is betting $500,000 on a game, like this guy, and they have no context. And I do agree with half of your argument, Rufus, where like this, it's very misleading, right? I think we both retweeted the BetStamp thread about how to identify kind of a losing bet or fake, and I thought that was a great thread, because like, the average person doesn't realize you can't just go into a casino and say, I want $1 million on this side, without that casino very much knowing that you are a losing bettor. Like, that's the only way you're getting that bet.
What was this thread? I didn't see it. Like, I need to know how I can pretend that I'm a real bettor and don't fall for these pitfalls.
Search BetStamp on Twitter. You'll find it. But so here's a question for you. Like, so right now, this whole ecosystem is working because there's so many new users, and as states, more and more states legalize, you'll continue to sort of have this flood of new users that are signing up for these books, right? But let's look 5 years down the road when you don't have that. Does this sort of affiliate model still work? Do we still see all these different sites that are providing betting content?
I think so, yes. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, sorry. I mean, I think that's why ultimately these business models and some of these companies like DraftKings, they're kind of like a Ponzi scheme to some degree, because like the media themselves, I mean, the media, they're only going to be able to get these bounties at this price until DraftKings runs out of like venture/IPO type money, right? There's going to be this consolidation, and when there's consolidation, there's all of a sudden going to be less competition for your eyeballs that you're sending them, so the money is going to go down. But it's going to change. I guess I don't really know how it changes. Like, I guess owning the eyeballs will still be important. I mean, it's been legal in a lot of places for a while, and in Europe they still have a lot of this type of stuff, right?
Wait, hold on. I like the Ponzi scheme idea here. So are you basically saying, like, right now you have DraftKings, what's their market cap? Anybody? I know their stock price is like $50 a share. That's a market cap of like north of 30 million, 50 million, something.
Depends how many shares outstanding there are, Rufus, and
right,
then it's just multiplication.
Right, I know. I just don't know that. That's why I'm asking. I didn't need a lesson on how to come up with how to calculate market capitalization.
Well,
but I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So they sold $1 billion worth of stock last week, I believe, because they need that money to continue operating, because they're losing $200 million a quarter. So right now people are investing in DraftKings because they think that the price of the stock is going to appreciate, right? Right now, DraftKings, their revenue or their user base, and I guess their revenue is growing. And as long as that continues to grow, or at least the perception is it continues to grow, people are going to, and there's this appetite for sports betting companies, that price may continue to go up. And so they have this stream of revenue. But here's the question: is DraftKings ever going to be profitable? Like, I don't think. I mean, you could. I see. That's why there's. That's the Ponzi scheme reference. I'm guessing. Question to you, right? Rufus, it's literally who's the last. Yeah.
I think the answer to you, and the answer, like the question to you and Rob, and to me also, is: would you invest in DraftKings right now? Do you own any DraftKings stock? And let's take any like ethical nature out of it. Let's just say, from a valuation standpoint, would you guys buy into DraftKings right now?
No, hell no. I think the entire space is in a bubble right now.
Well, I mean, I don't like the business model in general, but okay, going back to affiliates, right, Rufus, and whether or not this is going to exist years from now, to me, the answer is yes. And I'll tell you why. It's because the affiliates are better than the operators themselves at SEO, plain and simple. Like you are Googling sports betting terms, you're not getting an operator. You're not getting FanDuel and DraftKings as your top results. You're getting Action Network, OddsShark, whoever else is competing in sportsbook review. These are the people that are dominating these high ranking terms. And in order to compete with,
Wait, I want to do a little test for this. Give me some words to Google here.
NFL, like think of what an average person is Googling.
NFL betting.
How to increase my penis size.
NFL betting, New Jersey.
Oh, sorry. What are we talking about?
So I get NFL betting. I get playnj.com. I get actionnetwork.com, another Action Network, nypost.com, legalsportsreport.com, thelines.com, nj.com, njbet.com, bookies.com. Okay. Yep. Not once do I get DraftKings. Not once do I get FanDuel. Not once do I get any operator.
And that's one term. And these affiliates are
it's
so
also
good.
Like it's the verticalized media company is the ultimate, right? Because basically what you want is, like in sports, what the holy grail has been is there a commerce play to it, right? Is there some way to make money off of it? And in sports media, traditionally, it's only been advertising. There hasn't been any transact kind of thing. And that's why sports betting is interesting, because there is a transact piece to it. And so ultimately, like the model of what Barstool's doing, right, is why like there's some interest there, because they're going to own the entire verticalized media company all the way down to the transaction, which is much more interesting than what's happening with, Action Network plus. But Action Network's trying to do this at some level too, by having like these deep links with PointsBet, or like being able to take these affiliate fees. So even if we say, oh, this is gross, right? Because we're like, oh, it's like the incentives are all misaligned and you're trying to make me a smarter, better, but you're making money off of my losses. That's what a verticalized media company is in the sports betting space anyways also.
That's
right. Like if you took DraftKings and you added content on the top of DraftKings that was actually reasonable, it would probably be the same sort of model, right?
I mean, you see this sort of like, FanDuel, in DraftKings both put out betting related content. I think, FanDuel bought like Number Fire a few years back, and they have, there's this, they're trying to do that.
But they were doing that more from a standpoint, obviously, of DFS at that point, right? They wanted more content for their DFS. That was before sports betting was legal.
I think sports betting was always kind of the end goal, wasn't it? Not from the very beginning, but like once it became apparent that we were eventually going to get legalized sports betting.
Right. When do you know? Wait, hold on. When do you know a joke is a dad joke?
When Jeff Ma tells it.
When it becomes apparent. Sorry, I heard you say that, and I just had to. And I haven't told a dad joke on this podcast in a long time, so there we go. Okay, so can we move on? Let's move on to COVID and at the NFL, because that's kind of an interesting one, right? We've had limited examples of teams that have been in sort of like pretty tough COVID restrictions, meaning couldn't practice, tough travel. I think the first one was really the Patriots that actually played, and then the second one was the Titans. And in both cases, there was probably pretty decent line value, certainly in the Titans case, from what the analytics would tell you. The Titans obviously looked amazing, sample size of 1. I would say the Patriots outperformed expectations, even though they didn't cover, from a standpoint of like, so what are we to make of this? Like rest versus rust thing, or lack of prep? Is it overrated? What do you guys take away from this?
Not a whole lot, to be honest, Jeff. It's such a small sample. It's very difficult to take away anything. Like I'll be the first one to tell you that I made a mistake yesterday. So I took the Bills at post yesterday because in my head I was like, the Titans have had one walkthrough in the last couple of weeks.
One legal walkthrough.
Correct.
Like,
they were practicing in the park.
They were caught once. If you're, when the officer asks how many beer, have you been drinking, you say, yeah, I've had one beer. maybe.
We're speaking from experience. Wait, hold on, Rob. Now Rufus interrupted you, and I
I
really
don't
want to hear
condone
the rest
drinking
of your
and driving.
answer.
I'll get that out there. I don't condone drinking and driving.
I don't condone Rufus.
I definitely
you
was
either.
not speaking from personal
Can you
experience.
finish your story? I want to hear where you're going. So you took them at post, even though your model probably said there was tremendous line value on the Titans.
Yeah. What did your model have the line at?
No, that's pretty fair value for me. I'm down on the Titans relative to market. I would
Rufus,
say
you had like 6 points of value in that, right? You muted yourself to keep yourself from not.
No, I made it Titans minus 0.8.
Oh,
and
okay.
and that's not even giving the Titans any buy credit, which apparently they did deserve because they were fresh.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, I kind of got sucked into a narrative a little bit and ended up playing something that I didn't even really have an edge on, just because I perceived there to be an edge. I won't do that again. I kind of hate uncertainty in sports. I think we've gotten into this conversation before and talked about it. I think probably my greatest skill set is we're all largely working with the same data. There's some exceptions to that, but I feel very strongly in my ability to apply that data correctly to sports and think through things logically. I work with a partner who's very big into crypto and not so much focused on sports anymore, and he kind of runs that aspect of things. But he's constantly kind of teasing me, and he's like, "Why are you still betting on sports? Like, you guys are all using the same data. Where is your edge? Explain it to me." And it's the application of the data itself. So I like to be able to have things known and as much in front of me as possible. This COVID thing is kind of throwing a wrench in my plans for that. I've stayed clear of college football for that reason, with the exception of just playing news-related items, which I think there's an advantage in getting to market before everyone else knows that, if you have any decent information there. But for me, Jeff, I mean, it's going to be a struggle, because it's like Rufus said. I mean, yes, one legal walkthrough for the Titans. You don't know what else is going on behind closed doors. You don't. There's just so much that you can't account for, and that makes it, I think, a lot trickier.
Well, I think the takeaway then, I would say, for you in the first couple of weeks of dealing with this, is that you're not going to overreact to it. You're not going to fall for the false narratives, and you're going to consider it general uncertainty, and probably take into account rest more than anything, or shortened rest more than anything. Like the complete example right now, where the Titans are going to play on short rest.
Right.
Yeah. How are you treating that?
I think that's fair. Go ahead, Rufus.
I was going to say, well, first off, I'll say your partner and my partner must be friends, because mine is just doing our real estate stuff. And it's sort of like, I don't know why we're even betting on sports anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he knows we're winning, but like he's not a believer. He's jaded from he was a big sports bettor at one point, and now he's just way more jaded, and he's like, we can make so much more just like day trading crypto. Like, what are we doing here? Like, we have all sorts of other ideas going on as well. But I mean, it's, as long as sports are beatable, I'm still going to bet them. I'm not arrogant or cocky in any way. Like, when I don't have an edge anymore, I don't need to bet on sports, or like, I'll be done with it. I'll move on to something new. But I think there's still a lot of value to be extracted here.
So wait, Rob, this is an interesting topic to me, because like I'm kind of wrestling with this idea at some point too. I mean, right now I'm kind of toning down. Like, I didn't do baseball this year, and I'm kind of definitely less involved in football, and I'm focusing more on golf and then other projects, as I know you are as well, Rib, as it says on your video feed. So how much for you, like, I mean, I feel like my identity is as a sports bettor, and I feel like if my edge is gone, and at some point, let's be like, it's going to be gone. Maybe it's already gone in the NFL based on this season. Or maybe just with the model I have now, I just need to reevaluate. But how do you, where do you have that struggle, I guess?
No. I mean, it depends on what your values are. I'm a huge sports fan in general. That's what naturally made me gravitate towards sports betting and DFS. Like, I played DFS more seriously before I got involved in sports betting heavily. That was kind of my in, I would say. But to me, I'm very money driven for one. I think most sports bettors are.
Wait, what does that mean? You just want lots of money?
That means
Driven
that
by
like,
money.
yeah, I'll do whatever to make money. Like I have life goals, right? I mean, I don't want to be in the workforce when I'm 55 years old and like the old guy in an office and doing stuff like that's not what I want to have enough money in like my early 50s to just basically fuck off and golf and travel and drink wine and eat well. And like, that's how I want to live the later years of my life. So in the meantime, I'm trying to capitalize on that as much as possible. Right now, sports betting is an avenue to do that. It's not the only avenue for me. Like I could completely pivot into something else and I'd be fine with it as long as the money is good and as long as it's something that's of interest to me and I feel like it's something that'll keep me occupied because I've gone through stretches as well in the past where I didn't really have anything going on, and it becomes like a mental struggle for me. I don't really want to go back there, so it's just important for me to always have something on my plate. I mean, right now it's sports, but in 2 years it might not be.
But so, I guess I kind of feel similarly in terms of needing something on my plate, but I can't ever see like the retirement. Like, I mean, yes, I want to play golf every day and drink lots of good red wine and eat really well. But at the same time, I feel like I'm going to want to still at 55 have like something I'm working towards besides, lowering my handicap. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I need that purpose, whether it's beating a market. Like beating a market is like a challenge. It's a game. Like I know, Rob, I feel like you like games probably as much as I do or close, right? Like you need a puzzle to solve.
I do. That's what it is for me. Like I just always need a challenge or something on my plate. I agree with that. I mean, it's naturally the way I was brought up. That I'm a geek when it comes to that. Like, one of my hobbies, passions, is doing like escape rooms. Like I don't know if you're an escape room guy, but like I love logic puzzles. That's just what I like to do. So it's just in my nature to do that. But like it doesn't have to be sports, is what I'm getting at. It could be something outside of sports, and I'd be interested in it. I know what my skill sets are right now. They translate well to sports betting, and honestly, I've spent a lot of time in the market now, and I'm like I still learn stuff. It sounds dumb to say that, but like I actually do still learn from other people on a regular basis. And
how was hockey for you this year?
It was one of my worst hockey seasons in terms of ROI, but because I'm betting more now, it was a pretty good year.
Got it. So you still made money. You made money. You're making money in NFL. It sounds like you're making money in college by beating the market, beating the market to the news. So that sounds wonderful.
You're still betting golf?
Yeah, it's good. Golf has gone downhill since, and which I would guess that it has gone uphill for you, Rufus, because we've talked about this, but like when you do well, I'm probably not, and vice versa, because you're a pretty early market maker. So you end up on one side, I end up opposing you a whole lot, and that's just the way it's going to be in that market. And I got to I gave back a lot of profit post COVID. I still end up having an okay year, but like golf is not my focus right now. You're probably still very excited about golf going on this week and things of that nature. To me, I'm not even looking at it right now.
I mean, excited isn't the word I would use. It's work. It's a chore, but it's I mean, I'm excited about it for the prospects of making money.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys one. Like I'm listening to you guys talk, and it's interesting. It's fascinating, and I'm not being facetious like I normally am. I'm not someone that makes his living off of sports betting. I have like a job that's Rob, you almost offended me because you're like the old guy. I'm like, that's 8 years away from me to be 55 in an office. What? No, I get it. I'm messing with you. I really don't.
To each their own. It's just not what I want to
be. I still want to know what you're going to be doing, Rob. Like you're going to need to be doing something.
He's going to be drinking wine with me.
No, he's going to
get like 65, and I'll want to play golf with him. We'll go drink good wine together.
Rob is going to be bored out of his mind.
First and foremost, I'm type 1 diabetic, so I already have a shorter lifespan than everyone else. I got COVID on top of that, which I'm convinced is going to lead
from Rufus.
Yes, from Rufus. Like Rufus was patient zero, either him or his fiance, but I don't want to throw
No,
her into this.
it wasn't her. It
So,
was actually it was probably somebody out. Like it was. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but it was someone I was skiing with out west. I'm sure.
okay.
Who knows?
Spanky was sweating a lot. Like Spanky was the first, I think, that was showing visible signs of COVID.
Wait, he was showing visible signs at the conference?
He was like, I don't know if he's just naturally always sweating, but he was sweating. Like
maybe he gave it to me. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I didn't give it to him. Damn. Okay.
We'll never know. But I'm convinced that COVID is going to have some sort of impact that we don't know about, or at least I think there's the possibility that like everybody's just dismissing this as like, oh, it's like this virus and you're going to get it and forget it and whatever. But I'm not so certain of that either. But regardless, I'm a realist. I don't think I'm living to be 100 years old. Personally, like I don't want to. I just want to enjoy my life. Like that's what it comes down to. And yeah, I mean.
Okay, so my question to you guys was going to be, what would be the thing that you would do? Like, and I've like lived this with Rufus, where he's done this journey trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life. So I'll start with you, Rib. Like, what could you see yourself doing if you lose your edge in sports?
Well, the first thing I would do, if I'm being completely honest, is I would look for some sort of alternative in sports. Maybe not in betting, potentially in some sort of content fashion, where I have some ideas on what I'm going to do that I guess I don't really want to publicly share because they're a pivot for me.
Rib, I hope they're not the same ideas that I have, but we'll talk about that.
We might. I mean, yeah. You've confided in me before, Rufus, and I know some of your ideas. We probably are not much overlap, but I would never be opposed to joining the opposite side of the counter. I'll be completely honest. I mean, I've been very open about this, but I've consulted for tons of different gaming operators in the past, and I kind of like that side, seeing the perspective of, and it's mainly more so been casino and poker than actual sports, but I do like seeing the opposite side of things and how they run businesses and things of that nature. So I think there's a lot of opportunities outside of actually betting on sports within the sports betting landscape that would appeal to me. First and foremost. Okay. There's backups to that as well. But
Rufus,
that would be.
Do you want to answer this, or do you want to just move on? We can just move on.
I'll answer it. I feel like I've been for the last few years kind of looking for sort of my next thing, just because. I mean, there's still a lot I enjoy about what I do, but at the same time, you've been doing something for 10 years plus. It isn't the same as the beginning. There isn't the same excitement factor that to get out of bed every morning, and so. I've been exploring various different things and kind of looking for what sticks. And I mean, some of that, I have a few different balls in the air business wise. And actually, believe it or not, Rib or McRib, I don't know which one you prefer. Since if you went to McGill, then McRib would be perfect.
I did not go to McGill, no.
Okay. Which, by the way, McGill, it sounds like it should be a McDonald's fish sandwich, but
Rufus is pretty happy with that.
Yeah,
I am happy with that one.
Yeah.
But
I've been working on that for a while.
Believe it or not, I think
except for that one's called the fish fillet. So whatever.
Okay.
Fish. God, I messed it up too.
Yeah, you did.
We all suck.
This might come as a shock to you guys too, but I would never be. I would, believe it or not, despite what I say on Twitter and stuff, I wouldn't be opposed to working on the other side of the counter, because it would be a different challenge and it would just I would need to work for a company that I felt like whose values sort of aligned with mine, and what, was doing things in a way that I felt like was the right way. That's all.
Right. Okay. Let's move on to the NFL. What jumps out at you guys this week? Where do you guys see value? Rufus, I know, like looking at Massey, Peabody,
it's not even updated, I don't think.
Well, I looked at it going into the Monday night game, and knew that you were going to be on New Orleans in that game.
Yeah, correct. And then I was on the Chargers second half, and I got middled, and it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, that was a familiar song to me. Okay, Rob, since you're actually doing well this year, what does it look like for you this week? What jumps out at you?
And Jeff has Chris pulled up, so he's ready to fire right now.
Okay,
Fire.
so I'm not going to go through the list of what I've played, and honestly, I haven't looked at the board in the last few hours, but there's been quite a bit of movement today. Let's see here what I kind of still like. Okay, so a lot of convoluted answers coming up here, but Detroit -3, anything -120 or less seems short to me against Jacksonville. I think people kind of fell in love with the Jags as potentially being like this decent underdog because of their week 1 win earlier in the year. And when you look at their last 3 weeks, they've lost by 42 points combined against the Texans, the Bengals, and the Dolphins. Not really a good look. I think the Jags are just as bad as we expected them to be at the beginning of the year, especially on defense. The offense is mediocre, but EPA per play, dead last in the league by a mile on defense. We'll see if they get reinforcements back this week with Miles Jack and CJ Henderson. But Detroit off a bye week, that seems like a short price to me, something I'll likely be involved in that I haven't bet yet, but I like the number now. What else stands out to me on the board right now? I like the over in this Rams and 49ers game. I mean, the 49ers, to me, that defense right now is just prime for the picking with the amount of cornerbacks that they're missing. And I do think that there's going to be some positive regression from the offense for San Fran. Garoppolo with an extra week to heal. Also, I think they just have some great matchup advantages against the Rams. The Rams have a really bad linebacking core. San Fran moves the ball east to west very well. Can really move the ball, and George Kittle against that linebacking core, I think, is a big edge as well. So those are two that stand out to me. But I mean, I'm going to have action on probably 3/4 of the board this week because I thought there was just a lot of standout prices here, Rufus. I'm not sure about you.
Well, first, I kind of let me know if I'm prying too much, but I'm curious. You mentioned the east to west movement on offense and versus linebacking core. Is that something that you model? Like, is that in your model, or is that like something that because when we talk about our picks, we look for things to sort of say, like, you have a number and then you sort of look for some narratives behind it. Is it the latter, or is it is it something that you like actually quantify, or is it something you just look at that you add on top that is a factor but not really quantifiable?
So it's the last thing that you mentioned. So the biggest difference for me in the NFL, I'd say in the last couple of years, starting the beginning of last season to now, is first I run my raw number on a game. It incorporates a lot. Like, it's not just it's a pretty sophisticated model of what I think the number in that game is going to be based off of what I think I can quantify. And then I go to the element of, okay, these are my edges. I'm going to dig deeper into this game and whether I really like this matchup or not, or if I feel there's something that I'm missing or something that actually like makes the edge even larger in the game. So there is a little bit of a subjective opinion to it. That's the first thing. The second thing that I've really avoided in the last couple of years, which I think has maybe as a diabetic will allow me to live a lot longer in life, is avoiding bad teams and betting on bad teams. Unless it's just a rule that I go by. I'll bet on a bad team if they're playing another bad team. In other instances, I just avoid them because I think in a lot of cases, I truly undervalue or overvalue that team, I should say. Like, they're worse than I actually make them in a lot of cases. I've got to the point now, like, if I can't make a logical case for a team to bet on them other than, okay, this is the number I make the game, I'm just not going to do it. And that saved me some heartbreak this year on one of your favorites, Rufus. Hey. I know it's a running joke now, but the Jets has been one that I've avoided a couple times. And I still don't think I make that team quite bad enough. Not that I would want to lay, what do we?
9 and it was at 10 at one point. I got plus 10. I think it's 9. It was minus 9.5 earlier this evening.
Yeah, we're pretty much consensus like 8.5 to 9.5. Pinnacle's been hanging these stupid numbers with juice, heavy juice this year. I don't know if you noticed that as well, which has been a pain in the ass for cross booking this year.
Isn't that the whole teaser protection thing?
Yeah, I think largely
they don't want to hang a number between like 7.5 and they don't want to hang 7.5 to 8.5.
Right, but that's sort of like that's just a glimpse into my process. So it's there is like a little bit of subjectivity to it, but I'm fine with it. I really am. Like, I kind of make a note of this as well. I've been pretty bad with my tracking this year, which is surprising because usually I want to track a little bit more when I'm winning, and when I'm losing, I don't want to do it. But last year I was making a lot of notes on like these were games that I passed on or added to because of subjective analysis, and it worked out in my favor. It's a small sample, obviously. Like honestly, we're talking like a dozen games, maybe I think it was like 18 games last year. But I just yeah, I'm in a good place. Like sometimes you just get to your sweet spot, and I think Rufus and you too, Jeff, you can understand. Like you just feel like you really have a good process in place at one point, and you go with it, and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's like I love what you said about tracking when you subjectively overrode what your numbers said, and like that's something. If I could go back in time, I wish I was more. I wish I tracked that stuff more comprehensively, because I think you're right. There is, I don't think that my number is gospel or anything like that. I know there's weaknesses, and it's like if you can sort of quantify like where you're wrong, that's like super, super important. But out of curiosity, what is your number? I know you're not betting the Jets, but what is your actual number on them this week?
Let's see. Average margin of victory for Miami is minus 7.33.
Okay, that's not that far off mine. I'm a 6. I mean, and that's a mean. That's not a that's not factoring key numbers.
Rob, where are you now with the Packers Bucks moving to even? Where are you on that game? By the way, I'm very happy that you said your 2 picks, because I'm actually down on both of those already. So I was excited about that.
And by the way, I'm on the other side of Jacksonville, but I got that at plus 3.5 reduced.
Got it. Okay.
And Rufus, you're probably going to be on the Niners, would be my guess at that number.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm using Beathard, and I still lean that way with Beathard, just because I'm like, is it Beathard or Jimmy G that's like hobbled? Like basically those are the same guy. If Jimmy G's like healthier, it's obvious, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Rob. Where are you on Tampa, Green Bay?
So I've already bet both side and total in this game. I bet Tampa. I actually took money line. I think average price of somewhere around 125. I have to double check that. And I played the over as well. To me, there are not too many game states where this plays to an under. And you look at the average total in the NFL this year, it's been roughly 51. I played over at 54, which is slightly above average here. But this is going to be the first time that Tampa, like Godwin practiced today, they're likely going to have Godwin and Evans on the field for a full game this week, which I think is going to do wonders for that offense. And then Green Bay gets Devontae Adams back as well. And what I particularly like about this game is you got 2 quarterbacks who, when it comes down to crunch time, they really maximize the clock, which is something that's important when you want to bet an over, right? You don't get, you give Aaron Rodgers the ball with a minute left in a game, and he's going to try to score. And it's the same with Tom Brady. So I made pretty much this game a pick 'em. Like my raw number is almost exactly a 0. Green Bay, the slightest of favorites, and my total is closer to 57.
Believe it or not, I'm pretty similar on both accounts there.
Does that mean I have to buy off now, Rufus?
Probably. Although I don't have a bet on it. It wasn't
okay.
How about the Carolina game? That's down to 2 now, and I think you're right. There's been some pretty big movement over the last 24 hours. Carolina's now -2, -106 on Chris.
Yeah.
Is that getting cheap now, or is that just getting to where it should be?
I don't think so. So I took Chicago, but it was news related. And I don't know if I'm going to hold that position by end of week. I could actually see Chicago closing. It's going to sound dumb, but I could actually see Chicago closing as favored here, just based on what I've seen so far by other bettors in the community and what they like with this game. Carolina's going to have a cluster injury problem on their defensive line. I know Kawan Short announced today he's out for the year, but they're probably going to be missing both defensive ends as well. So I'm not a fan of Nick Foles by any means, but if he's not pressured, I think there's a path to success here for him against the Panthers defense that they've played well, but they're really void of talent. on that defense. So to me, I think it's a sell high point on Carolina so far, who I've actually surprisingly been on quite a bit. I think I've bet them the past 3 weeks, and I'm opposing them this week. But I see that defense being a major issue for them this week. So I got a pretty good price on the Bears. I think let me just double check here, but I think I averaged like plus 130 on Chicago. Yes, I did.
You took money line?
Yeah, straight up money line. I was going to wait for a 3, but I already knew that as soon as Carolina practiced today and the injury news came down, it was going to get hit. And I think that's just like a little nuance I've picked up from, I mark down all the injuries I see in the NFL over the course of a Sunday and to keep an eye on them. And I'm pretty in tune with news. And there was only one way this line was going to go today. So I just jumped on the money line.
Nice. I'm aligned with you. I took plus 3 minus 120 on Monday on Chicago.
So
you better buy out then, huh? Because
no, I mean
this year I just don't win.
Rob, what are you drinking, by the way?
I'm drinking Vineland Estates Winery 2017 semi-dry Riesling from the Niagara region.
Jeff, are you
Indian wine?
Jeff, were you drinking anything? Any wine?
I'm drinking a Pinot Noir from Oregon.
I was drinking the Jim Nance The Calling.
We're such a bunch of bougie
Jim Nance Estate
bitches.
Winery.
I've told you the Jim Nance story, right? I probably told that on this podcast.
I think you need to retell it.
Oh, it's a good story. So when we were doing our sports company, it was called Citizen Sports at the time, and Facebook had opened their platform. We built a fantasy football app on Facebook that allowed you to play a full fantasy football season on Facebook, basically through this app. And we did a celebrity league to promote it. And we had people like Brooklyn Decker and Ronnie Lott and Jim Nance all involved in it. And so we were doing the draft, and most everyone had someone do the draft for them. They weren't actually doing the draft, Michael Lewis did whatever. And so when we were doing the draft, we had just built this app, so there were some bugs to it. And this was one of the first drafts we did. We're doing this draft, and like Jim Nance is like literally doing the draft himself because he like cares about fantasy football so much. And he calls me on my cell phone to ask me like how to do something. And I'm like talking to him, and like, Jim Nance's voice, like it's so distinct. He calls you on the cell phone and you're just like, this is amazing. I feel like I'm at Augusta right now watching the Masters. Nicest guy ever. Put down the phone. And then somehow, some reason, he was driving and had like some sort of like a Wi-Fi thing with him that was allowing him to draft. He'd pulled over on the side of the road to do the draft and somehow lost signal. So it put him on auto draft. And, obviously, again, this is a new app. Our auto draft algorithm probably sucked. And he'd already had a quarterback, and it drafted him David Garrard. And he starts typing in the chat window, why did it give me David fucking Garrard? In what world would I want David fucking Garrard? And just keeps going in the chat window about how terrible David Garrard is. And I was just like, man, Jim Nance, not so nice anymore. Poor David Garrard. So anyways. Okay. Anything else on the NFL, Rufus, you want to talk about it? I mean, are there any other fun games to go through? I'm excited that you're going to have bets on 3/4 of the board.
And I'm actually I'm really enjoying hearing more of Rob's process here.
His process is amazing. I love it too. It's like close between the bearded one and him. They both have like interesting tidbits to talk about.
You're gonna, the Jeff group chats are gonna be more interesting this week. I have a feeling.
What about the Giants skins? -3, -105.
Not one that I like personally. I make the Giants very close to -3. So this is you picked one of the games where I won't end up with a bet on it this week. I mean, which honestly I'm not going to lose any sleep over not having a Washington football team versus New York Giants bet.
What about the Ravens? If the Ravens went back to 7 minus 120, would you take that?
No, and here's where the subjectivity is going to come into play. I have an edge on the Ravens, numbers-wise. I think Lamar Jackson is hurt. He missed Wednesday and Thursday practice last week, did not practice, which is pretty rare for a quarterback. Got a full practice in on Friday, but I did watch Baltimore-Cincinnati on Monday in full. They didn't run their typical offense, where it was a lot of read option. It's reflected in the box score as well. I mean, he had 37 pass attempts and he had 2 rushing attempts in the game. And they were rushing attempts that were not designed runs at all for him. So I think they're really sheltering him at this point. Just something that I picked up. I could be totally wrong, and they could end up blowing out the Eagles by 21 points or so. But to me, Lamar Jackson is a big concern this week. Baker Mayfield is a big concern for me from an injury perspective. I mean, you don't get an X-ray on your ribs after the game if nothing is wrong with you, and that's what happened with Baker Mayfield as well. So those are guys that I just don't want this weekend.
But then you must like the Steelers there, or are you off that game?
I don't, because my number likes Cleveland.
Really?
Leans to Cleveland. Yeah.
I really like Pittsburgh is probably the game I like the most on the board this week.
What did you get that at, Rufus?
I got it at minus 3.5, minus 105, minus 3.5, minus 103. I don't think the market is with me on that though.
No, it's minus 3, minus 115 right now.
Damn, yeah, it's definitely going the other way.
Minus 3, minus 115 is a better price than what you got.
Yes, it is. I honestly just don't understand that line, and maybe there's something I'm not seeing. I think the Browns.
Have you checked Massey Peabody to see what they say?
I haven't yet, but okay. I think the Browns have been extraordinarily lucky. They're plus 23 on turnover expected points added on the season. They were outgained in terms of yards per play last week, and they've been their strength has been running the ball, and they've been in positive game states to do so in every game except for Week 1 against Baltimore. And in that, against Baltimore, they were trailing and they were shut out in the second half when they basically were in a situation where they had to go all pass. Add in Baker Mayfield's ribs and add in the fact that they're facing Pittsburgh, which has been so far the best defense in the NFL against running back rushes. And I sort of see if they get behind early, I think it could be like this could be a blowout.
Yeah,
interesting.
I agree with a lot of what you said. So the thing for me with Pittsburgh is they really haven't beaten anyone yet. I mean, you look at the teams that they've played this year; they have a combined record of 3-15-1.
Does that include the games against Pittsburgh or not? Because Pittsburgh's won all the games, so you got to subtract that out, man.
Fair enough, but you look at their offensive success rates in their games this year against some pretty bad defenses, and I think they're 23rd in the league. I'm not so. Essentially, what's happened here is these are two teams that I would have liked to bet against this week in some capacity because I think they're both overvalued, and they just ended up playing each other. I echo a lot of what you said about Cleveland. They're missing one of their guards this week on the offensive line, which he's been one of the best in the league this season. And honestly, you don't really want to be missing anyone on the offensive line against the Steelers' defensive line because that's the best in football. So
isn't Pittsburgh maybe without 2 interior offensive linemen too, right?
Interior is not so much a problem against Cleveland as it is because they have good edge rushers, right? They have Myles Garrett. Olivier Vernon is not elite, but essentially, I think a lot of what Cleveland does on defense, with their best player being Myles Garrett and getting after the quarterback, it's mitigated by how quickly Ben throws the ball. His average depth of target is very low relative to what it's been in his career. His air yards are very low as well. Pittsburgh's offense has kind of become this dink and dunk, which works for them because they have receivers that do really well in open space and they can really excel as soon as they get the ball in their hand. And I just don't see Cleveland putting a lot of pressure on him. They have a bunch of injuries in the secondary. So the subjective analysis, I would say I definitely, had I not made a number on the game, I would be leaning to Pittsburgh. But I guess my model is not entirely convinced yet that Pittsburgh is for real either.
I'm high on the Steelers defense. I think that's one reason, and probably a little higher on Roethlisberger. going into the season. But my number, and to be quite honest, my number, if I had no prior, I would literally only have Pittsburgh as a 1-point favorite. So I just was low on the Browns going into the year and high on Pittsburgh going into the year.
Okay.
We could have a conversation about priors. I'm not you. I mean, I'm pretty much almost off of priors at this point.
Wow. That's okay.
You can tell by the numbers, right? Because you can tell those are the differences between your numbers in terms of, because Rufus, you probably, my guess is, like the Jags, right?
Yeah, I do. And
we already talked about that.
I wasn't high on the Jags going into the year.
Yeah.
I wasn't high on Detroit going into the year, but I'm guessing. Wait, I mean, I feel like if Rob is on Detroit, that kind of has to be priors driven, because Detroit has been like, I mean, my no priors number on like rating on Detroit is number, what's that, like 25th in the NFL, and the Jags are 27th.
So
like,
why are you off of priors right now,
They're
Rob?
half a point away.
I'm not completely off of priors, but at this point, I think we have, and this is something I switched to many years ago now. I think we know enough about the teams to kind of really understand who they are. I can speak to the Detroit-Jacksonville game in general, but like, again, I just think Jacksonville's defense is incredibly bad. That's what's making my number and giving an edge to Detroit here. The Lions, with Kenny Golladay in the lineup versus not having him at receiver, are night and day this year, even if you look at EPA per play. And I just think he brings, such a different element.
But wait, what does that sample? What does that sample? You said you look at them with,
Rufus, we're never going to get the sample that we need in NFL for certainty.
I agree, but I just think that, if they've been a lot better with, like, I think it's probably other factors at play rather than just Golladay.
I think Golladay is an amazing receiver. He opens up so much more for everyone else.
That's fair, but I guess we just have different ideas of the value of a top receiver, probably.
Listen, I'm not going to stake my I don't want to stake my reputation on the Detroit Lions this week. I actually hate the Lions. I hate Matt Patricia, and I hate betting on coaches.
He's a rocket scientist.
So
I don't know if you guys knew that. Literally,
I did know
Keep
that.
the nerds away from football.
This guy can build rockets, but he can't figure out to pass on first down. Like they run AP into the middle of the defense on first down all the time, and I don't understand it. Like, it's not like Stafford is a scrub, but anyways, this is what bothers me.
We say he's a rocket scientist, but do we know if he was a successful rocket scientist? Like, maybe he tried to build a rocket and it just didn't launch. Like,
successful rocket scientist,
and that's why he had to go.
Does that mean he actually got something to the moon?
I don't know, but why isn't he a rocket scientist anymore? If he was good at it, he might still be doing it.
He's on the Challenger mission in '86, probably, I would assume.
What about? There's one other game I was curious.
By the way, Rob, I like Philadelphia. I know you said your numbers like Baltimore, but even though you're not.
Our bearded friend likes the Ravens at -7 juiced.
Ravens are plus 24 points in terms of fumble luck or fumble EPA alone.
I kind of like the Eagles with the lens of what Rob said, because we actually had the second half under in that Cincinnati game, and that was never in doubt, even though there was a defensive touchdown, and like the game was just mush. Like the Ravens just wanted to get out of there, like, without anything else bad happening. So
Cincinnati had like 100 yards in that game or something. It was like a pretty large beatdown. And that's the thing with the Ravens. They have a really good defense as well.
The defense has been fantastic. I agree.
Yeah.
But their offense has not been. But it's hid the fact that their offense has been very ordinary. It's been above average.
Exactly.
But in a lot of people, you could say, well, you know what? They had a double-digit lead in the second half against the Washington football team, against Cincinnati. They let up. But I don't know.
What about the Patriots this week? How are you guys going to handle all this time off? 10-point favorites over the Broncos.
Are we assuming Cam Newton, Andrew Luck? Is that Rob's the injury guru here?
I think Cam Newton's playing for sure, right? They said he's returning to the team, blah, blah, blah. They wouldn't have this line at 10 if he wasn't playing.
I guess the question is Luck playing?
Does it matter?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. Don't you? Rob, you're muted.
You're muted, Rob.
Rob, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Oh, you broke your microphone.
Uh-oh.
This is real.
Oh, no. We will never know about Drew Lock. Can Rob, can you at least hear us?
He can hear. Now he's muted. Now he's not. There we go. We can sort of hear you.
What do you mean you can sort of hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Yeah.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Magic.
That was weird, man. I don't even know what happened there. It's, gotta figure that out. So yeah. Okay, let's go down narrative street one more time here. Bill Belichick against young quarterbacks. It's an absurd how much the Patriots overperform against the spread with Belichick going up against a young quarterback. There's obviously a difference between Drew Lock and Ripken, who is like Ripken is a disgrace. The fact that they beat the Jets by like over a touchdown with a -3 turnover margin in that game, I think tells you more about the Jets. But Patriots likely getting Stephon Gilmore back. I mean, he posted to his Instagram yesterday like he was going to be playing this week. I'm almost certain Cam Newton's going to play. I think 10 is short, to be completely honest with you. I don't see many scenarios where the Broncos are able to move the ball against this Patriots defense. I really don't. They just don't have many weapons on offense anymore. I see a very similar game state to when New England played the Raiders a few weeks ago and kind of shut them down there. I know they're very different offenses, but what New England does is key in on your main weapon on offense, and the Broncos don't have one really. So it's going to be a real challenge for them to move the ball. And I don't think the Patriots are going to score at will here necessarily, but I think they win a game something like 27-13, 27-10, something in that nature.
Crazy. It's interesting to hear 10 is short for a team that like and like
play slowly. A team to play slowly.
I do expect resistance on this game. To be honest with you, I'm not supremely confident, but
there's a world where this could easily go to 9.5, 9, 8.5, and at that point you would fire away because you would think that the resistance and that move is coming from, the resistance of the narrative that you're talking about, which is ultimately the Patriots being able to sort of overplay their rankings as it pertains to like playing against young, like inexperienced bad quarterbacks.
I think that's part of it. I largely also believe that the market, maybe not the market, I think people overrate Drew Lock. Is what it comes down to. I don't have Drew Lock being a very good quarterback. I do have him as an upgrade over Ripken, like I said, but I don't think Lock is prime for this league in the long run. So that's probably where I'm getting the edge on this game.
Well, what about the under? It's really fun to bet unders in the NFL. So if I have any chance to do it, I would do it, right?
I would not advocate for. I honestly don't. I cannot believe that the totals haven't been adjusted more. I really can. Like we're talking about scoring being up almost 7 points year over year right now. And the totals have been adjusted, and they're slowly adjusted up, but we're talking about totals now on average that are maybe 5 points higher than last year. And I don't think the numbers are coming back down. I really don't. I know we did see more offensive holding calls this past week, which is going to impact scoring, or you would think it would, but it really didn't. We just saw game scores at the same pace. So
wait, last week I thought we had more unders last week.
We went 7 over 7 unders, but when you look at this total scoring for the week, it was on par with what we've seen in previous weeks.
Okay, so is the distribution. So
yeah.
Okay, if we do get more holding calls, what's the driver for it being a fundamentally 7-point shift?
There could be so many things that could be playing into it, right? I mean, it could be lack of crowd noise and offenses being more successful in that. I honestly think that I think analytics are playing a part. I think if you look at the distribution of like 1st and 10 passing this year versus what it's been in previous years, teams are passing more on early downs. They're not running as much on 2nd and 10. So I think part of it is that coaches have gotten smarter and are calling the games more like closer to optimal than what they were doing in years past. So I think it's it's largely a bunch of smaller contributing factors that are all adding up to this increase in scoring in general. So not one thing that I'm putting it on. I think it's just largely a number of things.
Okay, Vikings. I mean, might as well touch the whole board because Vikings.
Open a new bottle of wine now.
4 points, 4-point favorites over the Falcons. I was on the Vikings, and I had in-game some money line in that game last week, so that was a painful ending to me. I contend that I was happy that they went for that fourth. Maybe didn't love the play call, but generally was happy with the play call. I mean, it generally was happy with the decision. From an analytics standpoint, I think we now know that it was pretty much even to go for it. Like it was like a wash. Yeah. What did you think about that? And like, what do you think about the Vikings in this game?
Well, like in real time, I'm not running a probability model of whether it's right to go for it or not. I would have went for it if I was the coach in that position, but I also would have went for 2 points instead of kicking an extra point to go up.
That was a much more obvious one, for sure.
Right, and I still can't fathom that they lined up and kicked that extra point to make it a 5-point game. Like, I don't know. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they made the right call in terms of going for it. Even if it was just a marginally better call, it increased their win probability. So I'm fine with that. In terms of this game, I like the Vikings. I was actually surprised this morning. In the last couple of days, we've seen a couple times where Atlanta got bet down to 3 and then immediately money coming in. I think the Falcons are in shambles. Julio Jones probably out again this week. At least it's very likely that he's going to be out again this week.
Why do you think that line was so short? I mean, it's up to 4, but you said it got bet down. Like, who is betting the Falcons right now?
I don't know if there's somebody who's buying into like a new coach narrative or something like that. I would actually, if I was going to go down narrative street here and talk about the coaching change, I would say it would probably have a negative impact on the Falcons, just because I think this is a team that largely liked Dan Quinn as their coach. I mean, they played hard for him to end last year and the year before when he was under the gun in terms of potentially losing his job. And I think a lot of the quotes this week, they respected him. This isn't like a Bill O'Brien situation in Houston where, J.J. Watt is posting a picture of the sunlight because Bill O'Brien got fired and he hated him so much. So typically, if you do go and look at years past, performance in the first game with a new coach tends to be underwhelming. I think that's probably the case here. I just don't see much to like about the Falcons right now. And I think the emergence of Justin Jefferson at receiver for the Vikings, again, we'll get into small samples here, Rufus, but you look at early in the year when the Vikings offense was struggling a lot more, at least in neutral game states, they didn't have anyone opposite Adam Thielen on the field. Now all of a sudden Justin Jefferson starting alongside him, and he's like a legitimate threat at wide receiver, and that's really opened things up for the Vikings offense. So I think I made this closer to like a 5.1, I think was my true number on the game or something along those lines. So I like the Vikings.
I made it 6.3. I like the Vikings too. And their offense has not been that bad. It really hasn't. It's their defense that had been bad. But I don't I'm just low on the Falcons.
One thing about this, so Dalvin Cook is probably out for the Vikings, probably won't play. I actually kind of think that might be a positive for them because
they won't run it as much.
Yeah, I think part of what Kirk Cousins is not a good quarterback, but he's especially not going to be a good quarterback when you pound it up the middle on first and second down and he's facing 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. And I think this forces them to kind of open it up a bit, which works to their advantage against a Falcons defense, which is not very good. So I'm not downgrading them for Dalvin Cook being out this game. And I do think there's a difference in running backs there, but I think potentially that opens things up a little bit more for their offense. And they kind of back their way into what they should be doing instead of what they currently are doing.
And funny you should mention the third and long stuff. They've averaged 8.1 yards to go on third downs, which is like among the top 5 in the league, I believe. So it's and you're right. Cousins is good, like as a play action passer in rhythm, like passing within the confines of an offense, like rather than like dropping back to pass in obvious passing situations.
I love that you come with the stats to support my argument where I don't even bring the stats. I really appreciated that.
I'll be honest. I looked that up because I saw, like, I was looking for talking points on this earlier, and I saw that they were better on early success, early down play success than late down play success, and then also that they had, I saw I have a little spreadsheet that has some of this information just for if I'm looking for narratives, because we all love narratives, but. 8 but I saw the 8.1 yards to go on third down, and I was like, well, why are they? I was curious, like how their play success on early downs is so high relative to the yards to go on third down. I didn't really do any digging, but I saw Kirk Cousins has an 8.3% sack rate. That might have something to do with it, but also it could be penalties. I don't know, or it could be that the successful first down plays led to like not having third downs. So
right, yep.
All right, we got one more game. I mean,
this is the fun one.
We skipped the Colts Bengals.
Yeah,
I'm guessing. Fine. Well, I have one interesting one for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Will the Cowboys end up favored in this game?
I think they should be, personally. I listen. I'm a Cowboys fan. People that know me know that I'm pretty impartial on their games. Like I bet against Dallas last week. I took the Giants, and I'll bet against Dallas whenever. But I don't really understand this line here. I really don't. And I think a lot of it's to do with I'm not a believer in Arizona. I think people think Arizona is a lot better than they actually are, but they're below average EPA per play on offense. I think they're like 20th in offensive DVOA. They lose Chandler Jones on the defensive line, which, Dallas is exploitable on offense because they have a weak offensive line, right? They're missing both their tackles and their starting center, Joe Looney. And now all of a sudden I look at Arizona's defensive line without Chandler Jones, and I'm like, can they really exploit this weakness that the Cowboys have? And I'm not sure that they can. Andy Dalton, to me, has fared very well in his career. And granted, he's a lot older now. I completely get that. But you look at those glory years for him in Cincinnati, like 2011 to 2015, when they were getting to the playoffs every year. And he was largely surrounded by good weapons, right? I mean, A.J. Green was there. They had drafted Tyler Eifert. They had Gio Bernard out of the backfield. Mohamed Sanu was young, and he was a good player there. And then slowly, as those weapons left over time, so did Andy Dalton's performance. And now I think he's obviously surrounded with great talent. And I like Dak Prescott. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't want to say that this isn't a downgrade. But I think Dalton is the second best backup in the league behind Jameis Winston. I think he comes in and he probably moves the ball effectively against the Cardinals defense that I don't think is very good. So I did make Dallas a slight favorite. I think they could go off as favorite in this game. And it wouldn't surprise me at all because this number doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Rufus, I concur. You like the same thing because you typically like old white quarterbacks, so especially ones.
Hey, no, I mean, I honestly, so my number, the Massey Peabody thing has like an injury downgrade thing where I literally like there is value, I think, to knowing that like you have your quarterback rating, but there's also value to knowing that a guy was not the starter and is playing only because the starter was injured, rather than a team thinking that he actually that quarterback gives the team the best chance to win. So that said, I mean, my number was Arizona. So basically that's added on, but I think in a way I'm over adjusting. I think my adjustment's 3.2 points down from Prescott to Dalton. And so based on that, I make the number Arizona -2, but I also, I don't think personally that much of Arizona as a team. I have them as like a league average team, but I mean, I would just on a non-model personal note, I mean, if their head coach, Cliff Kingsbury, had Baker Mayfield as a starting quarterback, and he had Patrick Mahomes as a starting quarterback at Texas Tech, where expectations aren't that high, and he still managed to get fired. Like, based on that, I don't expect long-term success for him in the NFL. Like that's just my personal opinion.
All right, we might as well talk about the Bills Chiefs. 3.5. The Chiefs at this point minus 115.
Yeah, this is okay. So I mean, my number is Kansas City minus a point. What am I not seeing?
Okay. I mean, I'm higher than that. So for me, I'm closer to Chiefs -5 in this game. I'm very high on the Chiefs. I'll be completely upfront with that. I still think they're the best team in the league. I think they're playing the Raiders last week. They're getting killed. I'm getting messages from my friends like KC's going nowhere with this defense. Their defense is actually good. I mean, they played 4 games to start the year where they gave up 20 points or less in a season where teams are averaging 26 points a game. It's not like they played scrubs either. I mean, they played Deshaun Watson. They've played Lamar Jackson. They've played Justin Herbert. They played David Carr last week.
Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer, don't forget
they
that.
They played Bill O'Brien. They played Anthony Lynn. No.
Fair enough. But those quarterbacks are succeeding against other teams, or at least have come around a little bit. And those are what we would consider to be good quarterbacks in general. The Chiefs, to me, are they have an underrated defense, and I think that goes for it's forgotten a lot of times. I think back to Monday Night Football a few weeks back against the Ravens, where they shit kicked the Ravens, and I don't necessarily think that they're going to do that to Buffalo here. I don't think it's going to be that type of game. But the Bills' defense to me is concerning, and people come into this, especially first of all without their starting 2 cornerbacks last night and Matt Milano, who's a very, very good linebacker as well. If they don't get reinforcements on a short week, I think it's a problem. And then since we've been going down narrative street a lot this week, or just like the subjective analysis phase. I thought Andy Reid called a very vanilla game against the Raiders last week. I think he has a penchant to do this and has done this over the course of his career, where he saves the elite play calling for good opponents. I think we've already seen it once this year where they played the Chargers in week 2, and it was very vanilla. People are really questioning the Chiefs' offense. Like, is this the same team? And then they come out against the Ravens, and the Ravens had no hope in that game with the way that Reid called it. And you're going to see the craziest shit happen this week. I really, really feel like that. I really feel like this is a big game for the Chiefs. Buffalo's a big competitor for them. There's only one bye in the AFC this year as well because of the expanded playoff format to 7 teams. I think you're going to get a good Chiefs performance overall. So that's my subjective, narrative-driven analysis. But overall, I do like Kansas City.
Can I ask why he didn't, when they were down against the Raiders, why didn't he go for the better play calls then? Or maybe on high leverage plays.
I mean,
I always think coaches
it might be how they prepped and what plays they really practiced, right? A lot of this is prep.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, so last thing, and this is a very meta conversation. Rufus, you and Rob have slightly different approaches, and I would say generally very different approaches. How after hearing his approach and knowing that there are many times you guys are probably betting into each other, does this make you more inclined to want to go find another job or less inclined?
More okay. Ooh, that's not the question I expected to hear. I thought you were going to say, am I more or less inclined to try to integrate elements of Rob's approach into mine?
His level of analysis in the NFL.
Oh,
no offense to you.
It's far higher than mine. I agree.
Ahead of where you are.
Completely agree.
And so the question becomes many times we have these conversations and we go into narratives and we kind of shit on him, but there is a lot of value to what he's saying. Right now, if I were to back one of you guys in a contest, I would probably pick him.
I feel like I'd pick him too.
Well, so then if you're betting into him, right now, if you have a situation where you're betting into him, are you going to be maybe I won't play this?
Well, I mean, believe it or not, we're kind of aligned this week, it looks like. So I'm happy about that. Both on Chicago. Yeah, I'm on Jacksonville, but
I haven't bet Detroit yet. I will. I almost certainly will, just based on the way this line is trending. But yeah, I mean, there's that. We're not opposed technically yet.
Right, and I could buy out of my Jacksonville position at plus EV right now. So
yeah.
I'm happy with it, with the line move I've gotten there. I mean, we're in alignment on Minnesota, Atlanta. San Francisco. Like, I mean, our numbers are in alignment on the Jets game directionally. You're not betting the Jets though, because you were wise, sir.
No.
But no, I mean, I have a ton of respect for the way Rob does things, and I mean, like, can I ask Rob, how much time does it take a week for you? Like, how much time do you spend per week on the NFL? Watching game film, running your numbers, et cetera, et cetera.
It's labor intensive. Let's put it that way. So like, and it's weird. Like, full disclosure, I don't do the same stuff for hockey, right? Maybe because I think the hockey market is a little bit softer right now, and there's less people in it that are winning. But like, hockey is like, run the model, trust the number, go bet it. That's it. Move on with life, and it's like that. I get to this level of detail in the NFL because I think it's just harder to beat in general. But it's a grind, man. Like that's why I don't have time to do golf right now, and why I chose to not do baseball anymore. And when NHL and NFL overlap, like they did for a little bit this year, like becomes very difficult. So I mean, that's the downside of it for sure. And there's a trade-off there, 100%.
Right. And Rob, like, I mean, I'm like, man, I want to be able to, like, listening to you, I'm like, man, I should be looking at more in depth at this stuff. But then I'm like, I don't have the time or bandwidth to do that right now, because my time is focused much more on golf, where it's still run the numbers, but there's still, a lot going on there. And I have a lot of other stuff that I can't necessarily talk about on my plate as well. And so, right. I mean, you're doing the same thing as I am, but you're in terms of focusing more on one sport, but you're just doing it on a different sport. Yes.
I will say one of the advantages I found, and this kind of was because of social media, is like, I've been able to connect with other bettors and other, like, whether it's we talked about the Right Angle Sports Slack channel. There's a number of different Slack channels and things of that nature that in a lot of times people are doing the work for you, which is nice. Like, I don't have to spend all my time seeking out team news anymore like I did in the past. And like, people will bring things up, and it's just more so of trying to absorb as much information over the course of the week as possible. And that's been a help. So like, the emergence of social media, I mean, many, many years ago, but I guess the way I use it now has allowed for me to do this stuff without just like pulling my hair out and being at a computer for 12 hours a day. Like, I know that if I go to golf now and there's a key injury in the NFL, I'm going to get messages from many different people simultaneously letting me know that that's happening, which is nice. So, I mean, I don't have to be available 24/7.
They'll message you personally?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, I would do the same for that.
This was a long one, and you guys are both on the East Coast and need to go to bed.
I thought this was fantastic. I really enjoyed this. Like, Rob, you were fantastic, and
Rufus,
I want to be more
recording.
like you.
They can all hear this.
I know.
Okay.
I'm still very tilted by the results of Rufus's poll. Like, I'll be honest with you. Had you told me like that Rufus was going to post that poll, I would have made myself like a minus 500 favorite to be the most liked. So I have to reevaluate my entire life now and how I view myself, because
I think the Jets on there threw everybody off because it let people know that this wasn't a serious poll.
Okay.
I can't tell if anyone why does anyone care about a Twitter poll?
I don't know. I just want I want to see what happens if you guys post the same poll, just out of curiosity. I think it'd be interesting to see.
I mean, just so you guys know, I had my first winning night in about 2 weeks today, so I'm really excited about that.
Sweet. Was it the game that was on in the background the entire podcast?
I mean, it was I had bets. I had 4 bets in the baseball game and went 3-1 in them, so that was reasonable.
Nice.
So I could have gone 4-0 if that game had just gone over. It ended 4-3. Anywho, thanks for joining us, Rob. We'll have you on again if your schedule permits, because you are a media darling these days.
Seriously.
Good luck this weekend. And for those of you guys listening, thanks, and we'll see you next week.
For it.
On this week's Bet the Process podcast, we have a couple likable people, a couple unlikable people, Rob, Pizzola, Rufus, and probably some of the best football discussion we've ever had on this podcast, which isn't saying very much, but it's actually pretty good if you want to listen. And somehow we managed to pretty much go through the entire NFL board with some bets and some value and hopefully something that can make you guys some money. So with that, let's start the process.